everyone. It is Dr. Jackie giving you another solo episode of the Black Social Capital Podcast. For those of you listening for the first time, welcome. And you know that the Black Social Capital Podcast is an arena for Black folks to share their experiences, expertises with those of us navigating undergrad, grad school, entry level positions, mid level careers. We're trying to do all those things. So today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. If you have heard me talk in past episodes, you know that I am usually explaining something that was once complicated for me, like investing or things about working in a large department. And I'm trying to make them as simple as possible for the people that are coming behind me. But today, I'm going to tell you my unpopular opinions, and we're going to jump right into it. So, first, a small thing. Leftovers are the best, and being able to eat the same thing over and over again is actually a flex. Now, I'm not one of those people that needs a lot of variety, and I can handle eating things over and over again with not much of a problem. And I understand there are other people that cannot do that. I get it, but if you can, it is definitely a flex. The way I see it is if a food is good to you and it's good for you and it's easy to make, why not just eat it all the time? You can be decadent and fancy on the weekends or special occasions, but other than that, food is fuel. Just eat the food that's good for you and keep it pushing and easy to get and easy to make and all of that. And when I say it takes me a long time to get tired of a food, I really mean it, because I ate the same breakfast from elementary through high school without even really thinking about it. And I don't think my parents thought about it either. Those Eggo waffles and I don't know, there were some sausage links that I liked at the time. I would eat two of each every single day. And I don't think I even increased how much I ate from elementary to high school, which I probably should have in retrospect, but I just didn't think about it. It takes me a long time to get tired of a food. So the reason I say it's a flex is because you save a ton of money. You could buy things in bulk, and if you eat it all, and you'll save even more if you eat it all, by not wasting any of your food, not wasting any money, buying new food and throwing out food. I always feel bad when I throw out food. So right now I'm really into meal prepping, mostly for dinner, and it saves me a ton of time. So on the less in my life in practical sense of I really on the less in my life in practical sense of, wait a second. Cool. So on the less in my life in practical sense of just eating food and not having to worry about it, not spending a bunch of money on food, not wasting food, I try to keep in mind that a lot of people in this world, do not have any variety. They don't have any choices. They eat the same thing every day for the majority of their lives. And if they can do that, then I should certainly be mentally strong enough to eat the same meal prep for 3 or 4 days during my work week. And to me, it feels like a wasteful Western first world thing to just turn your nose up at some food because you've had it for a couple days. Because there are people in this world that have no choice. So that's number one. I'm going to stay on food as my topic for unpopular opinion number two. I would say that eating meat during every meal is lame. I took this really interesting class on food production in the United States when I was in undergrad. And the standards that food production companies have to follow in this country are way too low. What they feed and inject into animals is scary, especially when you think about how your body has to digest that food, those chemicals, those drugs. Also, the animals live terrible lives most of the time. So I really do try to keep my consumption low, if not minimal, if not like just non-existent as much as possible of meat. I try to keep it really low so that capitalism is not ramping up meat production on my behalf. Also, the vegan and vegetarian options are really good now. I'm enjoying trying out different things, and it's really easy to reduce meat consumption now compared to 20, 30 years ago. So, hats off to the fully vegan and vegetarian people out there. Like, y'all have created and pushed for some really awesome changes in the food industry. And I think that a lot of people should be excited to try the things that are available to you. And we can probably get most of our diets to be more plant based, which is probably what they should be in the first place. So, this is what I do personally instead. To keep my meat consumption low, I don't cook meat at home. I will order it at a restaurant. So that's probably more of a personal contradiction than an unpopular opinion. But I try to have a plant based diet. When I do buy meat, it's pescatarian. So maybe some shrimp here, maybe like, I don't know, some salmon there every blue moon. But for the most part, I don't buy any raw chicken or beef or pork or any of that. And I just I just try to keep it to a minimum. So if I'm out and about at a restaurant, I might get the chicken wings, but I don't buy it to bring home. And I have been able to compartmentalize and minimize what I'm doing in terms of meat consumption in that way. Cool. So, unpopular opinion number 3, minimalism is where it's at. And I say that as someone who is probably a very bad minimalist. I got into it in like 2015 or 2016 when I read the Marie Kondo book. I know a lot of people have seen her show on Netflix, or some other people have read her book. That book was great. So there are 3 parts of this book that I really liked. One part, I feel like she really gained my trust by explaining how she was obsessed with organizing and minimizing everybody's belongings when she was a child. And she got in trouble for it a lot because people were really tired of her throwing away their things or misplacing their things or moving their things because she was trying to organize and figure out the best way to just declutter their house. So it was funny and kind of sad, and it that was just the first part of the book that really stood out to me. And I think the part of the book that most people gravitate towards was the part where she takes you through the process of how to downsize your things. So when she takes you through the process, you start with clothes and then you move on to something like books. I don't remember every step of the process. I did this a long time ago. And then what I do remember is that you learn to make increasingly difficult decisions about how to to part with things. And then at the end, you do your most sentimental belongings, and you should be able to be good basically from there. But my favorite part of the book is where she works with you and gives you examples and prompts you to get very clear about the life that you want to live, and on what physical items you need to live your life that way. So, keeping that in mind was really helpful when I was going through my downsizing process. I threw away and donated or shredded like 13 of those like big 30-gallon trash bags worth of stuff. So, it was a life-changing process. I'm very glad I did it. Probably need to do it again. But I'll be trying. And I will also say that I took what worked for me from her book. There were things that didn't work for me. And at first, I was a little stressed about it, but I don't stress about those things anymore. I know on some levels that does make me a bad minimalist because I don't have the house that looks like no one lives there. And I don't have that expensive dual purpose matching furniture that a lot of minimalist lifestyle people have. Um, I personally find it to be elite. Like, I think there's an elitist side of minimalism, and that companies are using minimalism and minimalist as like buzzwords in order to sell stuff that could potentially be a storage solution for some people, but it ends up being clutter for other people. And I think that people are starting to talk about that more and more, and I'm glad to see it because I think that that marketing tactic probably does hold some people back from truly being able to embrace what minimalism is really supposed to be. So my house doesn't have a ton of storage, and some things that I'd prefer to put in a closet are just out in the open, and it's not clutter. It's just the best I can do with the space that I have. So I'm just coming to grips with the fact that it's just most important for me to have the things in my house that have meaning and a purpose. And that is where I am in my minimalism journey, which leads me to believe that maybe I'm more of an essentialist, which is a new term I've learned maybe in the last few months. That a lot of people have been embracing minimalism, and that feels like you're supposed to just have a house that like has almost nothing in it, and maybe a few decorations and furniture, and everything else is tucked away. But I don't know that that's how I want to live. I think that essentialism is probably a better term for what I am trying to do. Right now, I'm reading a book by Christine Platt on Afro minimalism, and it was a really, it's a good read. I'm towards the end of it now, and what I love about what this book has done for me is that I'm now considering how I can shift away from being so focused on throwing things away and moving towards how I can focus on using the things that I do own. And I think of it as a way to minimize what I do with my free time, but not like in a bad way or a limiting way, more in a like way of letting me focus on the things that I care most about, on the hobbies that I say I am most interested in. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably talk about it in maybe a future episode or reel or something like that. But so far, so good. I am definitely on my journey to try to make my space all it can be and make my belongings as awesome and, well, not awesome, but make my belongings like just meaningful and easy to access and make sense for me in my life. All right, moving on. I have two probably super unpopular opinions to end with. So we're going to jump into them. Number 4, traveling is overrated. I am a homebody and I am an indoorsy person. But I've traveled around the United States and I've traveled outside the country. I've had a good time. I've met some of my favorite people while I've been out traveling, and I've done some really cool things that I will honestly never forget. But I've noticed that sometimes people get weird around traveling. I feel like some people travel because other people like traveling and they have FOMO, and they'll either do solo trips so that they have something to talk about and contribute in conversations about traveling, or they'll go on trips with other people because they just don't want to miss out on the trips with their friends and family, et cetera, et cetera. And that is what it is, right? Sometimes it's a good reason to get out the house. Other times the trip is just not right for you and you should skip it. I think that some people travel as a financial flex in conversations with friends and family and strangers or whoever, coworkers, and also for the gram, because we know that traveling costs money. So if somebody's always going somewhere or always doing something interesting, then that is a way to show people that you're doing well financially. And then I think there's this other group of people, and I have a lot of sympathy for some of the people in this group. Like they have lives that they don't truly enjoy, and it might be for reasons like for, you know, the consequence of some decisions that they've made, or it could be something like completely out of their control, but they just need to escape. And I see people going through things like their houses are cluttered, so they want to travel and go someplace where they don't have to think about all of their belongings, right? And all of their unfinished projects and all of the things that they need to do. There's also people that are not involved in any local activities that speak to their interests, and they travel to go do things that they're interested in, but their city may have some of the things that they're interested in, or they might have to go a city over, but it's available. And then I think there are people that just live in places that don't have anything they're interested in, and that's rough. And I just feel like there's a group of people that are constantly trying to escape their realities, and I hope that those individuals are doing things to build lives that they truly enjoy, that they don't need to escape from as much as possible in their circumstance, so that travel is not the only time that they can feel happy. Because, I mean, what kind of life is that? So for me, I'll be honest that earlier in my career, when, you know, earlier in your career, you're not making that much money. I was trying to travel all the time, and I realized that it was just getting more expensive than I can justify. So I started telling people no if I, one, wasn't truly interested in that particular trip, and two, if I really just couldn't afford it even if I was interested in it. And I had to get really honest with myself about what I valued in terms of how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, and about how I spend my money. I missed some trips that would have been a lot of fun. And I missed some opportunities to make memories with people in my circle. Like, it just is what it is. But for me, I feel like saying no when the trip didn't speak to me allowed me to build a life that I don't need to escape from. Like, I did my minimalism and essentialism process that I talked about before, and I do love being at home. And I know not everybody's a homebody. There are adventurous people out there, but I mean, it really worked for me. I live in a city where I'm lucky enough to have friends to visit who live nearby. There are all kinds of museums and parks and dance classes and parties and other events that I can go to. And I mean, I live in Oakland, so everything is here. This place is great. Um, and most of what I need is within 10 miles of where I live. Like, I can find just about anything in the Bay Area. Sometimes I don't want to go 10 miles towards San Francisco because, ooh, that the traffic and the bridge and the one-way streets in that city is a lot. But honestly, the only way I can live like this is because I didn't overextend myself earlier in my career. I took time to pay off debt, and I didn't go into a ton of debt traveling. And that's why I can live like in the city of Oakland proper, because I have a financially modest background. So all of the decisions that I made back then, good and bad, still affect me now. So, yep, that's my unpopular opinion on that. And that is why. So, next, this is probably the most unpopular opinion. I think Americans worship sports and that it's unhealthy. And I don't want to shame anyone for liking sports. There's absolutely nothing wrong with watching uber talented athletes do their thing, or having a favorite team, or having pride in your city and all, just loving all of the sports associated with that city. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like there are some really scary things about how people approach sports, and I want to talk about those. So, first, I feel like there is nothing that these big organizations can do to lose support from more than a small group of people. The NFL stays getting flamed for how they denied players were getting serious head trauma back in the early 2000s, how only a year or two ago they were in the news for adjusting cognitive tests for race, because they were arguing that Black players had less cognitive skills in the first place. So they didn't have that much to lose. So that justified Black players who wanted to be compensated for head trauma being paid a lot less than white players. Like, that was just recently that happened. And then we have countless team owners that are standing 10 toes down when they do blatantly racist things and say blatantly misogynistic things. Like, no one cares. And that concerns me. I feel like like, when I say no one cares, I feel like all races, all genders, all people, like all people's identities, like they just keep it pushing and they just tune into those games. And I feel like when people practice like their religions, or they have passions for like hobbies, or they're really dedicating themselves to their health in terms of diet and exercise and other things, like those people are outnumbered by the number of sports fanatics there are. So when I say like Americans worship sports, I feel like just the sheer number of people that are going to watch the games, wear the jerseys, get the tattoos, have the parties, physically fight people who like a different team, or tear up the city when their team loses or when their team wins. Like, that group of people outnumbers all of it just outnumbers everyone. So I just think it's more than a pastime, and it's something that should be looked at. For me, when it comes to sports, I like to watch gymnastics. I will only make time to do that really a few times a year, but I will stop when I see someone doing gymnastics on my social media timelines. And my policy on the popular sports like football, basketball, and baseball is pretty much more or less the same. I don't typically root for any one particular team or city unless I'm in that city and I come to realize that if they win a game, usually like a big championship game or something, then I could go to like a party or a bar, and everybody's going to be in a good mood, and the dancing and everything is going to be on 10 because everybody's so excited. Like, that's when I care. Other than that, I do care if I'm dating someone and they like a team. Um, I'll wear the jersey. I'll watch pieces of a game. I usually won't cheer, but I hope that their team wins because it'll make that person happy. And I mean, basically, otherwise, both teams could lose on all of these games, but I think that would make a lot of people very unhappy. But I say that to say I don't really care at all what happens in the competition sports. But I'm engaged now. So I think, so that means that go San Francisco 49ers. And I don't remember which basketball team. And yep. Sports. Go sports. So yeah, those are my unpopular opinions. Hope that you connected with some of those today. I do want to say something about having unpopular opinions, though, because I think everybody has some. And I think it's also human nature to, in general, want to fit in and go with the flow with other people. And then sometimes it's fun to be different and be contrarian. But I think when it comes to unpopular opinions, like, they can make you stand out, and it can be cool to relish in the reactions and the attention that people will give you when you go against the grain. Like, sometimes it gets a conversation going. Um sometimes people learn, right, from those conversations. But I would say one thing I have learned is that it's important to be careful about beating people over the head with your unpopular opinions all the time. So if every time somebody is in the grocery store buying like a raw chicken. Like if I'm like, oh, you shouldn't eat meat all that, like why would I do that? Like nobody wants to hear that all the time. And truthfully, the same thing that can make you interesting in the right conversation can make you seem really boring in other conversations. So it's all about how you connect with people and your purpose for sharing your unpopular opinions. But my purpose was to tell you all about them today. I gave you 5, and that's basically it for me today. So if you have unpopular opinions and you're watching this on YouTube, let us know what they are in the comments. And that is it for today. Thanks so much. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, the way we build social capital is to build self and build others. We are sure you got some notes on your tablet, computer, or even using a pen and paper. Leave us a review, continue the conversation on social media at Black Social Cap, and share the show with someone you know. Until the next episode, stay motivated, rise together.